things leadership. As you know, I'm Beth Berghan. I'm an internationally awarded leadership and communication coach, and I'm here each Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which is Sydney time. So I'm so excited today because I get to welcome someone that I have a lot of respect, affection, and admiration for, and that is my special guest, Carmel Crouch. Welcome, Carmel.
Oh, thank you very much, Beth. It's just a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really
Oh,
thrilled to be
my pleasure. Carmel is going to talk with us about all things leadership and communication. As you know, what I wanted to give you a little bit of background about Carmel. Not only is Carmel a mum and a grandmother and a partner, she is also a very regularly awarded and very regularly recognised woman in her own community on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. She's won the Sunshine Coast Inspiring Women Award. She's also been a Senior Australian of the Year nominee on a regular basis in Queensland. She's been an Australian of the Year ambassador in 2019 and 2020. Right now, as well as being the Jobs Australia, a national board. She's the chair of Jobs Australia, but she is also the board chair and the managing director of the Steps group of companies, which she was one of the forces in establishing in 1989. So we have someone sitting here who has leadership oozing out her pores, Carmel. I don't know if that's a very nice thing for me to say, but I think you get what I mean.
I do. Thank you. Yes, yes. Definitely decades of leadership, Beth, show very clearly on my face.
There's always a lot going on, and towards the
Yeah,
end of the year, we all get tired, don't we?
we do, definitely.
So, Carmel, when you think about leadership, you've had leadership. Like, I guess what I didn't talk about is the fact that prior to prior to becoming managing director at Steps, although you'd established this Steps Group Australia, you were also operating in other leadership roles. So there's always been that kind of leadership in your life. Uh, what does leadership actually mean to you?
Yeah, look, I think I've had some very privileged opportunities through my life to lead teams of people. I kind of fell into being a leader very early in my life, to be honest. And when you consider my age, and time that I started being a leader, it was actually quite unusual for females to be leading teams of
Mm.
people. And I was I guess I've always been a bit of a unicorn when it comes to the things that I've done. But yeah, I've certainly worked across a lot of industries, from food distribution to working in coal. That's where I started and got a leadership position there quite early in my life. So so I think in terms of being a leader, it's actually about always wanting what's best for the people, or for for whatever service you're delivering. And for me, it's always about the people. It's never about anything else except the people,
Yeah.
and wanting to be able to have people actually achieve. And so my role as a leader has always been what's in the best interest of the people I'm leading, and whatever organisation that we're actually delivering a service within. It's always been the
Mm.
service industry I've worked in.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that one of the things that we didn't explain is that the Steps group of companies works in the community services space, so largely with people with a disability and vulnerable Australians, often of all ages. So Steps is actually a national provider of a number of services. So you can see that the leadership that Carmel plays isn't into a small space. So one of the things that I'm always interested in hearing from people, and because of the work that I do, Carmel, it comes up quite often. When you think about an aspiring leader and someone who really would like to get into that leadership space, what are 2 traits or characteristics that you believe that they would benefit from developing?
Listening skills to start with. I think that if you're actually putting a leadership team together, or you're stepping into a leadership role, the most important thing is to recognise that you're probably not the expert in the room, and you don't want to be the expert in the room, to be honest. So the only way that you can actually gain the skills to actually understand the business that you've stepped into, or the organisation that you want to be helping to lead, is to actually listen to everybody, listen to everything that's being said. So talk less, listen more would be the one of the major things that we need to do. We often go into new roles, I think, and try really hard to impress upon the people around us our knowledge. And when we're moving into a new role, we don't have the knowledge to do that, but the people there do. And listening to what they have to say is probably the most important thing that we do in any new job.
Yeah. So anyone who's an aspiring leader really needs to understand the value of communication. And it's so easy to forget that those listening skills are a really important aspect of communication. Yeah.
And I think also building, it's the best way to build relationship. And, a leader of any sort, whether you're aspiring to be one or you are already one, is that you build strong relationships with the people around you. They'll always have your back, and they will always be the people who come and tell you, what needs to happen and how it needs to happen. Like I said, I'm never the expert in the room in a leadership team.
Yeah, I really like that. And I often find myself saying to my coaching clients that if they are the smartest person in the room, they need to think about finding another room.
Yes,
Because, it's awesome to be challenged, isn't it? It's awesome. And yeah, I guess that just that comment that I've just made and thinking about aspiring leaders, often aspiring leaders are uncomfortable actually. I'll use the word challenged because we've already used it. They're often uncomfortable challenging those who are higher up in the organisation than they are. Do you have any tips around how they might do that?
Well, a good leader should always be happy to be challenged. But if you have a leader that's not, then the conversations probably should be had in a room where there's just the two of you. I suspect is probably a better way to go. But I think that if you have a leader that's not prepared to be challenged, they're in the wrong job, and you probably are as well. But we can't keep moving jobs all the time, I understand.
Yeah.
But I think it really is important that leaders understand that their role as a leader is actually to be challenged by the people around them, because we're not the knowers of everything, and a good leader is always happy to have their staff that they work with, and it's really important, the definition of working with people rather than having people work for you.
I love that. Yeah,
it's really important that people are actually working beside you, and they're supporting you in your leadership role, and you're supporting them to understand that as a good leader, when they're stepping into a leadership role, that's what they need to do as well, is to have people work with them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, with versus for is very important. It's the same as talking with people or at people, isn't it? Yeah, they're very different scenarios. Awesome. So I guess the flip side of what are skills or characteristics that you think that aspiring leaders would benefit from developing is also, the flip side of that is, what is one thing or more in your experience that you think that an aspiring leader would benefit from being less of?
Well, probably similarly to what I was saying, the opposite to listening is actually not talking too much. I think that when you move into a new role as a leader, as I said before, listening is really important, and allowing people to speak, and not speaking yourself. I mean, we're all very anxious often to tell people who we are and what we do and what we're good at. What's really important for a new leader, I think, stepping into a role or looking at stepping into a role, is gathering as much information as you can about the people who are actually going to be working with you.
Yeah.
And knowing who they are and how they work. You know, a leader has to come in with integrity and honesty and vulnerability and be prepared to be one of the crowd, if you like, and not step above them straight away. They will always refer to you as the leader. You just have to deserve that to be that. And getting people to feel comfortable to be able to say what they need to say to you, whether or not it's something you want to hear or whether it's not, is the really important part of actually being a strong leader and actually having people follow you. And that's what will always get you where you need to go and your organisation where you need to go. As you said before, Beth, we're a community organisation. When I came into this organisation, we were a community organisation, but we weren't a good business. And community organisations very often do an amazing job in the community, but they don't run necessarily a great business model. And if you want sustainability, which we all do for our community organisations, then we need to have a sustainable business. And to have a sustainable business, you've got to sometimes make some tough decisions, and risk taking is really part and parcel of running a good business. As long as they're calculated risks and you know exactly what those risks could be, and you're happy, and your staff and your management team are on board with you on those, then you know they're the way to actually keep your business running and moving forward. You know, Steps was quite a small organisation, and with the help of the leadership team that I have here, who are amazing people and so much smarter than me, we've actually built the organisation to a substantial size, and you know, so we can actually deal with the ups and downs of community funding and government funding. We win some, we lose some, and we move on. But we're always here for the why. And you know, what's really important to me is always about why we do what we do. And if we lose the why, or we don't understand the why, then we probably shouldn't be working in a community organisation.
Yeah, I think that often people outside of community organisations don't always understand that there are some rather unique challenges about running the business aspect of the community organisation. And I know that you will have seen over the years that they've come from sort of almost what are called mum and dad organisations, you know, run by a group of really committed volunteers. If they haven't been able to step up into that business aspect and really be successful business people, then they either get swallowed up by somebody else or they have to close because they can no longer offer their services.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And you know, in the decades that I've actually been working around the sector, as you mentioned before, I haven't always been working inside of Steps. I've certainly seen a lot of really wonderful community organisations disappear because of the fact that they didn't actually set their businesses up to run as a business rather than a community service organisation.
Yeah.
And it is really important that that's you know, a big part of what you do. And there's, you know, you don't always win some friends in doing those things as well, but you do get credibility from government agencies to actually continue to fund you. And really, at the end of the day, this is about the people that we're working with. You know, the most important people in any organisation is its people, and then running programs that actually change lives is actually the reason why we're here.
That you're doing what you're doing.
Exactly right.
So Carmel, you've obviously managed and overseen the board of Steps as it's grown from potentially, you know, one location on the Sunshine Coast to a much more national footprint. And as you've grown with that, what are some of the leadership skills that you felt that you've needed to acquire or sharpen along the way?
Look, I think that over the decades that I've actually been in leadership, it's very much around around the fact that the people that have been part of my leadership teams or coming through as staff members of our organisations that I've worked with, those generational changes have actually meant that we've had to change the way we actually work with people. If we're talking about working with young people of today, it's a very different scenario to what it was working with, or what it is working with, the older generations. And organisations like ours are generally filled with people who have stayed with us a really long time. You know, I've got staff that have worked here for 25 years, longer, and a great deal of those are what we might call, you know, the over 45, well and truly, some of us. And of course, as the younger generation comes into the organisation, those leadership skills need to change and evolve to understand how the younger people actually work and how they want to work. You know, people of my generation very clearly live to work, and young people of the day work to live. And more power to them, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, as leaders, we need to adapt our leadership styles to deal with the generation.
To take that into account,
to deal with the generational changes that are actually there, and we have to deal with and understand. And it's a really important part of being a leader, that we actually understand the generational changes of how people want to work.
So, for the last couple of years, you've been the board chair for Jobs Australia, which is a national body that draws together representation from organisations like yours, and obviously other leaders like you. Is there a difference in the skills that you need to use on a daily basis and with your own board to what you need to use to chair this kind of industry body almost?
Yeah, look, Jobs Australia is a peak body, and the board directors on that particular board are a very diverse range of people. So they're not necessarily all in disabilities, and you know, they're across the board. If they are in disabilities, they're in youth, or they're in you know, other parts of the service business, if you like. And they're a very high level board as well. So, you know, it was quite challenging for me to actually make a decision to take on that role. I thought, you know, Steps, even though it's a medium sized organisation, some of the board directors on Jobs Australia are certainly very much larger than Steps. So it was a real privilege to be asked, and I've so enjoyed working with them, because they are a really dynamic group of people. And I would say very clearly that I've probably learned more than I probably have about boards and about people and about working in that level. However, the skills are the same. It's actually about building rapport and building relationship and delivering on what you say you're going to do. And I think that's what's really important is if you put a plan in place and you understand what that plan is and the expectation of the people around the room, particularly, you know, on a national board, and you deliver on it, then people actually listen to what you've got to say. So they are an amazing board. I'm very privileged to be a part of it. And it certainly taught me a lot. And it doesn't matter how long you're a leader. If you actually think you know it all, then it's time to leave. Because there isn't a day goes by that you don't actually learn something new about how you can do things better. And if you lose that, then, you know, go do something else.
That the curiosity and that desire to be getting to know people and building relationships is really what it comes down to, isn't it? And you know, so much of what you've already said today around listening and being prepared to let others talk and not needing to be right now and all of those kinds of things, they're all great leadership behaviours and traits. And obviously you can use them in a range of different situations. So, Carmel, when you think back on your leadership journey, are you able to recall like a sliding doors moment in your leadership journey that you can share with us?
Well, okay. Well, it might have been about the sliding door that said that I was retiring when I turned 62 and thought I'd start travelling, because I'd sold the business that I had actually been working in for a reasonable amount of time, and then my board decided that it was probably time for the current or the then current managing director to perhaps go and work for somebody else, and asked me whether I'd actually sit in that chair for about 6 months until we found another managing director. So that was a pretty substantial sliding door for me, because it actually changed the trajectory of my life.
Mm.
And that 6 months actually developed into substantially more time than I would have particularly have planned for. But I guess it changed the reasons why for me, and I guess the reasons why has always been what's dominated my decision making.
Mm.
And it's always and I'm privileged to be the parent of a man with a disability who's 50 years of age, and so he's been my motivating factor for a very long period of time. So coming to work in the organisation of STEPS rather than just being the chair of the organisation was probably a fairly substantial change or a sliding door that would have taken me in a very different direction had it not happened.
Mm.
And I'm grateful every day for the opportunity to have been able to sit in a leadership position in this organisation. I'm surrounded by the most amazing people whose leadership actually is the reason why the organisation is as resilient and good. It's a good, solid organisation that does amazing work, and will continue to do that long past the time when I'm not here.
Mm. One of the things that I know, Carmel, is that there are likely to be lots of young people with disability and lots of their families who are also very grateful for the fact that you're there, because some of your why has been, they're now living and reaping the benefits of some of your why. And one of those things is an absolutely unique Australian facility, which is your Pathways College.
Mm.
I'm in awe of the work that's gone into and continues to go into developing that college. Is it okay for you to share some of that with us, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be delighted to share it. It's my favourite subject.
I know. That's why I figured if you haven't talked about it by now, I need to ask you.
Okay, all right. Well, having a son still living at home with a disability is challenging, and he's a beautiful man, but it is challenging, and it just certainly does change the life that you thought you might lead, and the life we're all entitled to lead. So, a good number of years ago, I developed a program which I thought was going to be really quite helpful and successful in giving parents and young people with disabilities the opportunity to live a life of independence. And so I started the concept of putting together a college campus on our beautiful property here in Caloundra. And I asked the community to support us to build that. So we had incredible support from the community to build the Pathways College. It's a replica of real life, I talk about it as. And we have accommodation here for 22 students, all of which are young people over the age of 18 who have a desire to live their lives independently away from their families. And for me, I understood that it's almost impossible for a parent to teach their own son or daughter to be independent in their own home. It's just not possible to do. You're always going to be mum and dad, or you're always going to be mum that does all the things that mums do. And while we're trying to live our lives and work, it's pretty hard to actually build that strength of knowledge in a young person with a disability. So, I knew that if I could bring young people out of their homes and put them into a real life living situation, that we could teach them how to live independently. And that's what we do here in Caloundra at the Pathways College. We've got a beautiful campus here of 3.5 hectares of glorious property here where our head office is located. And we have around, 22 students here all of the time, and plus our day students who come in here. So
they come and live there, don't they?
They come and live here.
Yeah.
Stay here for anywhere from 12 months to 2 years. And every single student who's actually come through our college over the last nearly 7 years is now living independently in their own units or homes away from their parents. But the joy for me in my personal situation is that I've been able to watch families become mum and dads and siblings to their young person with a disability, and not carers any longer and have a life. So, that they've never expected to have. So it is.
And they learn all sorts of things.
They do.
They learn maintaining the tenancy for a start, and just basic housework. What else do they learn?
Well, I think the most important thing they learn is how to live in a community. So they learn how to live with other people, other young people with disabilities. They learn relationships. They learn how to how to deal with the life's general problems that come along, and we have very, very specifically trained support trainers. They're not support workers, but we don't do anything for the students. We actually support them to do it for themselves. We aren't punitive and we aren't parental, so it is a very, very different environment to being at home, and they love it. In actual fact, the majority of them don't want to go home when it's Christmas time.
Yeah.
Not because they don't love their families, but because they've actually developed their own independence of living.
They're independent. So they're learning about cooking and cleaning and going and buying the groceries and learning how to read a bus timetable and going to recreational activities and
all of those things.
Wow.
And we have chefs who teach them how to cook properly. I think the most important thing that we teach them here, which lots of parents say they'd like to send all of their children to, even if they don't have a disability, is to learn how to eat healthy meals. And by the time they leave, they've got usually the capacity to cook around about 30 meals that which I don't have the capacity to do. Most of us cook about 10 or 12 different sorts of meals in a fortnight or a month. I can assure you these guys can do substantially better than any of us can. So it's such a pleasure to see them and to see them leave. There's a whole lot of tears every time there's students leaving. We have a wonderful graduation that's happening on the 7th of December here in Caloundra for another cohort of students who are leaving. It's such a joyful place to be.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly frank, the only reason that I'm probably still doing this at my age is that it is such an absolutely incredible highlight of my life to see.
And what wonderful traits of leadership to have that vision in the first place, to actually bring that vision to fruition, and to be the driver in the community, to continue with a commitment that I'm not going to rely on government funding for this. I want to be able to do it our way. In terms of developing the facility, and to continue to grow that so that it's recognised as being a unique and a very successful facility. So yeah, I love that.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Hey, before I say goodbye to everybody and summarise what you've said to us, is there a way that people can connect with you? How would they best find you? Obviously, they can find you on your LinkedIn profile, but how else?
Oh, well, they can actually give me a call anytime. So I'm always open to having conversations with anybody about what we do, and I'm always happy to talk about pathways, and that's actually one of my favourite subjects. But as an organisation, absolutely, you can contact us through our website, but
through the Steps Group website,
But you absolutely contact me through LinkedIn. It's a very easy process to do that.
Yep. So I love the things that you've shared with us. First of all, that it's a little, when you started out being a leader, it was a bit unusual for women to be in leadership roles, and that you really always have had these leadership tendencies. That it's about, for you, leadership is about wanting what's best for people, and the sorts of skills that we need to develop are those listening. Listen more and talk less, or talk less and listen more. And this recognition that relationships are so important. And the relationships go across all levels of the organisation, not just across, the executive team or the management team. And to gather experts around you, and to be prepared not to be the most intelligent person or the smartest person in the room. And I love that curiosity. is a great leadership trait to have, I think. Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me today. So everybody, thank you. I hope that those of you who watch it on replay, put #replay. Very happy to deal with any questions, and interested to see your comments. If you want to know how to connect with Carmel and you're a bit stuck about that, send me or pop a question underneath this replay, and I'll make sure that you get connected. Thank you again, Carmel. It's been wonderful to share this time with you. I'll see everybody else here again next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time.